Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I upload 3 times a week on this channel. Wednesdays are a fashion and lifestyle video, Fridays are my weekly uni vlogs where I just vlog a week of my life at uni, and then Sundays are my Unsolved Sundays where I discuss some sort of true crime case. It will be unsolved or a solved case, typically just whatever you guys leave in the comments below. Today I'm back with the final instalment of my mystery week. If you haven't already seen, I've uploaded a mystery video every day this week since Sunday, so check out all those other videos. And yeah, today's the last case of that instalment, and after this we'll be back to weekly Sunday mystery uploads. Today's case is going to be another solved case. I've done a couple of these already this week. I've never really done solved cases before, so I thought while I'm doing this week I might as well do a little bit more of the solved cases because you guys have been requesting them. So today we're going to be discussing the solved murder of Jessica Keane. Now I just wanted to mention this one in a video because it's quite interesting, sort of the investigation behind it. And like I always say with these solved ones, especially if there's actually like a conviction and a final sort of answer, it's always nice to see a case where the family and the loved ones of the victim actually receive answers and the person who committed the crime actually is put to justice. It's a nice difference, a nice change from what we typically see in my videos where I typically discuss unsolved cases or solved cases where people get away with it and things like that. So yeah, that's just sort of why I'm mentioning this one today. So if you want to learn a little bit about Jessica's case, then keep on watching. I'm really sorry, on an unrelated note, I forgot my coat was on the back of my chair, so I'm moving that now. Jessica Lynn Keane was born on September 24th, 1975, making her only 15 at the time of her murder, and she was born in Columbus, Ohio. Jessica was an honour student and she did really well with her grades, and she was also a cheerleader, but at some point sort of in her school lifetime, cheerleading began to take a backseat as well as her grades began to drop, and I'll kind of go into a little bit why. So like I said, her cheerleading became less important to her and her grades began to drop sort of in the last couple months before her murder, and around the same time she actually met an 18-year-old boy whose name was Sean Thompson. The two became extremely close and eventually became a couple, and this meant that she was focusing on him more. She ended up actually skipping school, meaning that her grades were dropping, and she eventually actually quit cheerleading. Jessica's parents really didn't approve of Sean because of this, because of how she was acting. Not that he necessarily was making her, we don't know that, but because of the way she was acting, because of her grades dropping and everything, her parents just weren't happy with their relationship, but it didn't seem to stop the two at all. On March the 4th, 1991, her parents actually placed Jessica in a home for troubled teens. It was called Huckleberry House, and it was kind of there just to help troubled teens kind of improve their behaviour. It was just supposed to eventually kind of change the way she was behaving. 11 days after she arrived on March the 15th, 1991, Jessica actually had a big argument with her boyfriend over the phone, and she decided that she wanted to get out of the house, Huckleberry House, and go to a nearby mall. Because of this argument, she was just kind of like cooling off. In order to get to the mall that was relatively close to the house, she had to catch a bus from the bus stop that was just around the corner from the house she was staying in. It wasn't far. She'd done the trip loads of times, so it was kind of like everyone knew the route, it was okay for her to go. But this was unfortunately the last time that Jessica was seen alive. She was reported missing when she didn't return home that day on March the 15th. Just 2 days later, on March the 17th, 1991, Jessica's body was found 20 miles away from Huckleberry House. It was found just near the fence of Foster Chapel Cemetery, just over 20 miles away from the home she was staying in, and unfortunately she had been raped and bludgeoned to death. On closer inspection of her body, they discovered she was still wearing her ring and also her watch, suggesting that it wasn't like a robbery motive. However, there was a necklace that she was known to wear every day that she was seen wearing that day that she left, and it was a gold necklace with the word taken written on it, but this was not found on her. After examination of the body, investigators' main belief was that Jessica had been approached at the bus stop she was waiting at to catch the bus at around 6 p.m, and she was either kind of coerced into the car or she was then forced into the car by either 1 or 2 men, where she was then raped and held for 6 hours. Then at some point in the early hours of March 16, 1991, Jessica managed to escape her captors and she ran for safety towards the cemetery. They believe she had hidden behind some tombstones in the cemetery where one of her socks had fallen off, and they discovered it, as well as a knee print was found behind one of the tombstones in the ground. Still hiding from her attackers that night, she noticed a light in a farmhouse just kind of in the distance. It wasn't too far away, and she kind of began to run towards it in hopes of alerting someone that, you know, she needed help. However, since it was the middle of the night, she was running in complete darkness, so she was running straight towards this light, and as she was kind of running full pelt towards this light, she actually ran directly into a fence post where she disorientated herself, ultimately leading to her captors being able to catch up to her. This is where they once again raped her and ultimately beat her to death with a nearby tombstone. And it's also believed that it was at this point that they took her necklace that she wasn't found wearing. So the first and most prominent suspect through the early stage of this investigation was Jessica's boyfriend, Sean Thompson. As I mentioned, they had a fight, and also, you know, their parents didn't like them, so it is typical to look at sort of the other halves in these investigations, but more so in particular because of their fight, he became a huge suspect. What little DNA evidence they could gather from the crime scene, they were able to determine, they were pretty confident at least, that Sean wasn't the perpetrator of this act. He also had a pretty strong alibi at the time. He and some friends had been leaving at the time of Jessica's murder for a trip to Florida, so he was with his friends, so he was ruled out virtually immediately as having nothing to do with it. After clearing Sean's name, investigators virtually had no leads, which eventually led to the case unfortunately going cold. They were convinced that Jessica was most likely have been murdered by someone that she knew kind of relatively well, because she would either have to feel comfortable enough to actually get in the car with them or at least to talk to them. However, this isn't guaranteed, because it is possible there are scenarios that can play out where she doesn't necessarily know her attacker, you know, someone could have come up to her and asked for directions, something like that. So that isn't guaranteed. That was just kind of what investigators believed at the time. In order to preserve Jessica's memory, Jessica's family actually placed a large cross right near the fence post in the cemetery that night, just as a kind of reminder and a memory of her. It wasn't until April 2008 when the cold case of Jessica Keene's murder actually was run through again. The little DNA that was found on Jessica's body, it was run through the system once again, as they do every now and then with cold cases, and it actually brought up a match. And I've kind of mentioned this in a couple of other videos. It's all to do with sort of when the perpetrator was arrested. So whatever had happened, the individual's fingerprints or DNA hadn't entered the system until later on, so they couldn't know at the time that there was a DNA match there. The match led them to a man named Marvin Lee Smith, and he was actually arrested on April the 9th, 2008. Smith had previously been charged with the assaults of 2 women in Columbus, and as a result he's actually served 9 years in prison. This led to his DNA being entered into the system nearly a decade after Jessica's murder. After Smith was arrested on suspicion of having something to do with Jessica's murder, obviously because of the DNA evidence, he actually confessed to Jessica's murder. He was able to release details of the crime scene that actually wasn't released to the public, and he was also able to confirm that he was the only person involved in the kidnapping and murder of Jessica Keene. He also confirmed that he'd actually used a tombstone to kill Jessica, which is what the investigators had suspected. The tombstone that he'd used weighed 70 pounds, and he actually boasted to investigators that when he hit her over the head with it, it actually broke into 2 pieces, which he then threw over a fence nearby. As a result of his confession, he was able to avoid the death penalty that was set for him in March 2009. In February of 2009, Smith pled guilty in trial of aggravated murder, kidnapping and rape. As a result, he was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison, and he would not be eligible for parole until the year 2038. So that is the case and kind of the investigation into it. Like I said, I just wanted to share this case because it's one of those ones where, because of the constant updating, like cold case being run through the system, the DNA and things, they wouldn't have been able to find their attacker or their murderer until years after. So after all those years of Jessica's family not having any answers or closure, they finally received some, and the man was sent to prison. So justice was served on that behalf, and I just think it's a nice change in some ways to hear of a case where people receive answers. So that's everything for today. I hope you guys found this interesting, and definitely check out all the other cases that I've done this week and in the past as well. Let me know if there are any cases you want me to discuss in future week's videos down below, and I will see you guys soon for another video. Bye.